So insulin and the sugar control. So the first question we have is, how can cells communicate with one another? Well, before we start, we have to know what glucose is and how it comes into the body. So glucose is sugar, and sugar comes into the body with what we eat. It is processed, and it can either like rise our blood sugar, or it can also help fuel the rest of our bodies and organs to continue to keep working. It is important to have a glucose and a balanced blood sugar, because if it's too high, it can cause a lot of issues to your body. It can become diabetic. It can also, too much blood sugar can cause problems to your blood vessels. So it's very important for the body to work and have this mechanism of balance. So a healthy pancreas is what's needed in order to continue to have a balanced blood sugar. Insulin. Oh, sorry. Insulin tells the cells throughout the body, and it moves the glucose. Again, insulin is triggered when it sees the glucose. Um, and some of the energy, as I mentioned before, some of the glucose that is taken in is transformed into energy. So again, when the glucose comes into the body, the insulin is triggered and it creates the insulin in order to level out the sugar that comes into your body. Because again, it can be damaging if there's too much sugar in the blood. Um, Okay, so how do cells communicate with one another over short distances or long distances? It pretty much works the same. Just if it's in it the if the sugar comes into your body, it signals like the cells signal each other in order to start working. Because again, if they see that a big amount of sugar is coming in, more insulin is going to start being produced in the pancreas. And again, it's very important for health reasons. Um, so I do want to mention here that I have written on the slide that insulin and glycogen are secreted from the pancreas, and they're referred to as pancreatic endocrine hormones. And this production of insulin and glycogen by the pancreas are ultimately determines when a patient is sick, like having diabetes or other sugar level problems. Sorry again, my slides are messing up. Both of these hormones work to increase in glucose in the body, or when there is a need in glucose in the body. Now, I do want to show you guys this picture here. And this picture shows that there's an intimate relationship between insulin and glycogen with each other. And it shows that the pancreas is a very main player in this whole thing, which again, that's why a healthy pancreas is needed when, especially in this reaction. Um, Now, I do want to show you also in the picture, you can see that insulin has an effect on a number of cells, including muscle, red blood cells, and fat cells. In response to insulin, these cells absorbs glucose out of the blood, having the net effect of lowering the high blood sugar levels into a normal range. Um, and lastly, I do want to leave you guys off that although there is always a low level of insulin secreted by the pancreas, the amount of secreted in the blood increase as the blood sugar rises. Um, Blood glucose falls and the amount of insulin is in the pancreas goes down.
Okay, so what are the components of a signal transduction pathway? The three, well, there's two components, but I'll put it in three with the cellular response. The first one is signal reception, and then signaling transduction and cellular response. The binding of the signaling molecule changes the receptor protein, initiating the process of transduction in insulin of sugar by opening the protein. The transduction then, that stage converts the signal to a form that can bring about a specific cellular response by allowing the glucose to go into the cell. Okay, and the next one, what are the components of a signal transduction pathway and producing a cellular response? The signal reception is the first process that starts, which ensures the body to start working and start its process. Then it moves on to the transduction, the signaling transduction, sorry. And that stage is like a pathway of several steps with each specific molecule in the pathway bringing about a change in the next molecule. So the transduction is the binding of cells so they can grow and overall work together, which creates that cellular response. And the cell signaling process helps ensure that crucial activities occur in the exact and proper cells at the right time, as well as the proper location with the activities of the other cells of an organism. What is the role of the environment of eliciting a cellular response? Throughout the digestive process, carbohydrates are broken down in the digestive tract as the pancreas releases enzymes to break down the food. The food is then transformed into glucose, and essentially that glucose is then absorbed into your bloodstream through the lining of your small intestines. Once glucose is in your bloodstream, insulin signals the cells of the liver, muscle, and fat cells to absorb the sugar and use it for energy. How does a change in the structure affect the activity? However, cells can stop responding to insulin correctly. This insulin resistance reaction causes higher insulin and blood sugar levels that could potentially lead to diabetes, specifically type 2 diabetes. Some of the main causes that play a factor in insulin resistance may be overeating, increased body fat in the stomach. Other factors can include high sugar intake, inflammation, inactivity, and possibly genetics.
Is there a positive and or negative feedback mechanisms? We only have the negative mechanisms for our project. So feedback with insulin and glycogen is always in motion no matter what. And because of that, it is constantly keeping your blood sugar levels from dipping too low, which is not a good thing at all. Making sure that your body has a good amount of supply of energy. Insulin and glycogen are constantly having certain events that trigger one another, which goes on in a loop. This matters because it keeps your blood sugar levels under control and balanced out. So, in addition, the pancreas is what secretes insulin into the blood, which effectively is lowering our blood sugar levels, and this is a good thing. Overall, the triggers between insulin and glycogen are what are keeping the levels inside of our bodies balanced and keeping us healthy overall.
Thank you.
Thank you.